Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well today. I'm Carl Friedman, and this is the first ever episode of Let's Agree to Disagree. Today's guest is an old friend of mine, Raja Vadivel, who has written an excellent article on multitasking. Hello, Raja. How are you today?
Hi, Carl. I'm doing well.
Good to speak to you again.
Thanks a lot, Carl, for calling up.
anytime. Okay, Raja, I suppose my first question to you today is, can multitasking in the workplace ever be acceptable, in your opinion?
Multitasking is a skill which is normally outlined by most of the recruiters and consultants as a required soft skill in organizations today. But there's a lot of differentiation in what is the expectation and what actually multitasking means. In an organization where at a senior level, if you're looking at a senior level position, normally they are expected to do a lot of activities, including strategy, operations, handling everything. So that's where they are looking for people called multitaskers. But then, if there is the same person has to handle the micro level activities of each of the functional area, and then do multitasking over there, that's definitely going to be unproductive.
Okay. I sometimes wonder, Raja, when they put multitasking as a requirement in a job description, if it's just not something they write because everybody else has written it. Have you ever actually asked them what they meant in an interview when they wrote multitasking, just out of curiosity? Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, well, many a times I did find that, the first question comes to the person, even at the mid senior level management, is that, are you a good multitasker? Now, that's a question which is really difficult to answer until the clarity is there with the management or the interviewer personally. I found that many of the interviewing officials don't really understand exactly what they mean by multitasking actually to say.
Okay.
When I did ask a couple of them about what they meant by it, they only were saying that, oh, can you handle multiple projects at the same time? Well, that's macro level.
But to me, that's not even necessarily multitasking. I mean, if you start one job, finish it, and move on, start another job, a different project. Exactly. Yeah. So
exactly.
That's not the case. But I feel in having worked in India and in the UK and in Germany, I find it's a very, very different approach on average to how work is handled in offices in terms of real multitasking.
Correct.
That's
exactly where I was coming to. When it comes to macro level, in the interview they normally say it at a macro level, handling multiple projects at the same time. But when it comes to day-to-day operations, it's like I have come across a situation where I was asked to create a business plan for entering into the African markets, and then immediately there was another project, a technical, where I have to sit and put up the entire details of the requirement of the customer right to the design department, which is to translate the requirement to the design department.
Okay.
Which is two different activities altogether.
Yes, but if you don't do them concurrently or at the same time or simultaneously, then it's not multitasking.
That's the expectation of the organization.
They happen at the same time.
Yes, at the same time. I need to get it done another next 1 hour. I want this strategy. I want this inquiry also to go, because this inquiry is pretty urgent, blah, blah, blah. The same way normal management talk about.
Okay. But that's... okay, and what would your point of view be? Because to me that sounds quite reasonable. I mean, if somebody asks you to do something, and then for whatever reason something else becomes more critical and more urgent, and they ask you to move on to the other job or the other function, why would you have a problem with that?
No problem with that. It's like it takes about when I read some articles and when I read some researchers working on this multitasking ability or the skill, I find that the researchers are talking about at least a minimum of 23.5 minutes or something like that it takes for anybody to just come back to the original task, what he was doing, when he's interrupted. An interruption which is caused by putting in a task when the person is really concentrating on working on first task itself, and then coming back to that the original task, it takes about 23 minutes. Now, that's a huge amount of productivity loss for any employee.
Yeah. So
that's where I feel that the organization should, slow down in this so-called multitasking. In fact, the word itself is misinterpreted. It should be more like the people should more be interested in multi-talented people. That would be the right word to use rather than multitask.
Correct. But they use the word multitasking, I think, because they're expecting somebody to be able to multitask and juggle multiple things at the same time.
Yeah, that's what they are expecting. But the expectation is on the wrong interpretation of the multitasking word itself. Actually, the word multitasking originated because of IBM's first computer, in which they were talking about the machine's ability to do multiple tasks at the same time. You can operate on a word processor as well as an Excel sheet. I'm talking about those days as word processor and a spreadsheet simultaneously. That was the ability of IBM computers, and that's how the whole word called multitasking came into picture. So if you apply the same kind of a thing on a human being, it's not going to work. It's not going to have that same levels of productivity.
Okay. Well, I see things slightly differently, because if you're working in a culture where multitasking is the norm, I find that things actually happen faster on average than in countries where things are done in series and not in parallel.
I would beg to differ on that.
I understand what you're saying. It's good to start a job and then finish it without being distracted in between. And I would say there's a certain type of work where that makes a lot of sense, deep work or something which involves a lot of thought. But many jobs don't involve that much deep thinking, and one should be flexible enough to switch back from one to the other, in my opinion.
I beg to differ here. It depends again on the organization, actually, what you're talking about. Like if it's a lean organization, the expectation of the management itself is that you have to be able to handle a lot of activities together, because it's a lean organization and probably they do not have the cost, a sufficient amount of costs on their budgets. But in an even in such kind of organization, it's not possible. Like, let me take an example. A sales manager can effectively handle the execution of the project. No doubts on that. While maintaining the sales targets, because he's going to meet the customers, he's going to definitely, look for opportunities with the same customer, kind of repeat orders and all the stuff. But at the same time, if he has to micromanage a project in terms of execution, then it definitely needs a person who has to handle that at that level, at the micro level.
Okay. Raja, I'm afraid I think we're beginning to run out of time here, so we're going to have to agree to disagree.
Yep.
It was nice talking to you, and thank you very, very much for making this first episode possible.
Thanks a lot, Carl. Thanks for calling me on this.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.